Hi, I'm the Moonlit Page Turner, and this is my second quarter reads for 2026. These are all of the books that I read in the months of April, May, and June. I only have 17 this time. I do put them into 4 different categories. So I have my book club reads. We're going to talk about fiction and nonfiction, and this year I added poetry and plays. For my book club reads, I am in 2 book clubs. I have the Savvy Gaming Network that we read books based on video games. And for this video, I only have one, and that is Metro 2035. So it was a bit of a chonker. It was almost 500 pages, and so it took us about 2 months to read this one. And we have started a second one, which is Star Wars Outlaws, Low Red Moon, but this one also is a bit of a chunker, so we're taking 2 months to read this one. So this will be in my next set of videos, but for now, I just have Metro 2035. This is the last book of the trilogy, and I hated it. It got 1 star from me. Savvy did not even finish it, so she DNF'd it. It's the first DNF of the last 3 years that we've been doing this book series. To me, it felt like Dimitri wanted to burn his IP to the ground. You see a lot of characters not being so great. I think Anya is the only character in this book that I liked. RTM, hated him, and yeah, I pretty much read this book till the end. So I loved the first book. I love Metro 2030. I think it's 2033. We did not read the middle one that has to do with Hunter, but this book I do not recommend. It's supposed to be based on Exodus, but there is no train. So I don't know how it's based on Exodus. But again, it's a chunky book. I did finish it, but I did not like it at all. For the second book club, it's the Read the World series that I have here on YouTube. I have 3 countries to talk about. One of them, the video is already out, so that is the Central African Republic. I have Co-Wives, Co-Widows, and this is by Adrienne Yabuza. I loved this book. It is about 2 women who are married to the same man. He passes away, and his family tries to take over all the money and his they lived on a compound, and so they have to work together. They have a beautiful relationship. It's kind of a short book. It ends chef kiss, really great ending. Loved this book. The second book for the Central African Republic was a memoir. It is My Country Africa. This is the autobiography of the Black Passionaria, and this is Andre Blouin, and she is born in the Central African Republic before it was actually the Central African Republic. It's still part of the Congo area. She is from a Black mom and French white father. That complicates life for her. This book was very sad. I learned a lot when reading this book, but I felt like she needed a little bit more self-reflection in her life, especially with her choice of men and how that was mirrored in her relationship with her father. Also, her mom was 13 when she met her father, and her father was 40. So there was definitely some issues that happened in this book. She worked hand in hand to help the independence of the Congo and some of the other countries in the area. So she was very powerful, and then it's kind of sad what happened to her in life. The last chapter is written by her daughter, and it was sad, but I got a lot from it, but I didn't particularly like this one. The next one is Chad. I had a lot of issues finding books for Chad, so I have Told by Starlight and Chad, and this is Joseph Brahim Syed, and this book is beautifully written. It's very, very short. It's folklore and some of the histories of the foundings of Chad and early it's has a lot to do with the Muslim influence in early Chad, and so beautifully written. Again, very short. I did actually really like this book. It's weird the way that they described it. It's it's for elementary, secondary, and tertiary education. I would say maybe not elementary, just because of the vocabulary that's used in here, and definitely maybe not tertiary, which is college and above. But I I learned a little bit, and it is very beautifully written. You can tell that Sid really loves Chad. Like that is something that comes through the book. And then I have 3 choices for a Chile, and I finished one of the 3. So I'm working on the other 2, but the one that I finished within this timeline is The Private Life of Trees, and this is by Alejandro Zambra. And I was really disappointed in this book. I was really excited to read it because it is about a father, or he's a stepfather. So let me back up a little bit. Julian is our main character. He's married to Veronica, and Veronica has an art class, and she has not come home. And Veronica has a daughter who is Daniela, and so that is his stepdaughter. And he tells her the story to kind of appease her to sleep so that she's not worried about her mother. I wanted more of the story with the trees. It's very limited in here. This is also a very short book. The other 2 books that I have for Chile are longer, but the story about the trees is like a paragraph, maybe 2. It's not very long at all. So I was really disappointed in that. It's a very sad book because you get the backstory of Julian and how he met Veronica, which was kind of sweet. And then he really doubts himself he's a teacher and he writes on Sundays, and he really doubts that, like, his abilities. And Veronica doesn't come home, spoilers, but you never find out what happens to her. And it's just kind of And then later in the book, you get Daniela's perspective as like a mid-20s, early 20s, and she talks about her relationship with her father, and we don't really see a lot of her relationship with Julian as an adult. She does read the book that he is writing during this process of them waiting for her mom, but she kind of has mixed feelings about it. So yeah, overall, I was not super impressed. So far, I've started the second book in the Chilean, and that so far has been good. So I have a little bit more higher hopes for the other 2. All right, the next category is nonfiction. I only have 2 nonfiction books this time. They are kind of different. Like normal, I do read a wide variety of books. These 2 books I both did on audiobook through Libby, which is good because I wasn't super impressed with them, so I'm glad I didn't purchase them. One was Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain notoriously hates vegetarians, and I am a vegetarian, but I will put that aside. He is kind of an asshole too. But the audio version of the book, you like listen to the book because he reads it, and it's a little bit about his history, but it was more of a like introspective of what life is like in a restaurant, and particularly that time period in New York City. So that was very informative. Again, he was not the nicest person, but he did a lot for the restaurant industry throughout his career. He is no longer with us. And he has some good advice as well. I am not a restaurant and like super foodie person. I do like trying different things from different countries. But again, as a vegetarian, he is describing a whole bunch of stuff that is not for me. So it's not a bad book. I did like it. I just think for what it was, it's just not for me. I'm not the audience for this one. The next book is The Anxiety Generation, and that's by Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. I actually read one of his previous books, and I really liked it. This one has been making the rounds, and I did not like this book. The issues that I have with The Anxiety Generation is that he's talking about how technology is bad, especially for kids. And yes, there are a lot of issues and studies with the fact that technology is not great for especially for younger kids. What it's missing in this book is how to teach your kids to use technology responsibly, because technology is a huge part of our society. So I do have a background in psychology, like brain studies and scans and things like that. So I do look at this from a different perspective than most people. I wish that he would have used this is like technology is bad, to really focus on, hey, this is a way to teach your kids to limit their activities and to use it responsibly. This is how schools can do it. This is how you can do it at home with parents. And this is how you can teach students to limit their time without having that fight that we often see. Because some of these technologies most of the technologies that we see, social media, games, things like that, are based on you staying on as long as possible because that's how they make revenue. So teaching kids how to limit that and how to look at it in this perspective that they're being sold items, or you don't have to go on to the next quest, right? We're going to take a pause. We're going to have you go do something else, and then you can come back. So that way it's not that constant gratification that is affecting brain chemistry and even brain structure. So that was a big thing that was missing and a missed opportunity. The other thing that I saw in this book is that he has another program that's called Let's Grow, and it was very pushed especially towards the end of this book. I've looked into this program. It is about helping kids be independent. One of it is having your kids go on the metro in New York City by themselves. Again, like, teaching kids responsibility and how to be independent is great, but just letting them go and having them experience the downfalls and all of that could be extremely dangerous. So teaching them how to do that and how to make decisions, because that they're missing their prefrontal lobe, which is the planning portion of it. That needs to be taught a little bit more responsibly. And so I do not recommend the anxiety generation. I think it's worth looking at kids' use of technology, especially since they use it so much, and it's such even you can see it with adults and the way that they're using cell phones and things like that. But there is a way to use tech responsibly, and that was a big part that was missing for me from this book. For plays and poetry, I am trying to get through Shakespeare. I have only read 2 more plays out of this book. This is the tiny book of 4. So I read The Two Gentlemen of Verona and I read The Merry Wives of Windsor. Both plays I have not read before. I was somewhat familiar with The Merry Wives of Windsor because it has Falstaff in it. He is in multiple plays, and I have read some of the other plays that he exists in. I was not super impressed with that play. If you are not familiar with The Merry Wives of Windsor, Falstaff is like an older, fat, they talk about how fat he is the whole time, man who sends the exact love letters to 2 married women because he's trying to get their money. And so they discover it and they decide to play a trick on him. And at first their husbands are not fully in on it, which is kind of weird. But later on, the trick at the end, they are fully in. And so it's just them kind of getting back at him. There is a subplot of Anne Page is a young woman. Mrs. Page is one of the women that Falstaff was pursuing. She has an option between 3 suitors. Her dad wants one, her mom wants another, and then of course Anne wants the third one, who she's kind of engaged to already. And so the way that they decide that at the very end, it's like thrown in at the end, is very like Shakespearean. But when it comes to importance in the plays, I would say, and again, not one of my favorites. It took me a little bit while to get through because I got bored with all of the antics that were happening. The Two Gentlemen of Verona I did actually like. I did not like the ending, I will say, but if you're not familiar with Two Gentlemen of Verona, that is Valentine and Proteus. Valentine and Proteus are BFFs. They both go to kind of stay at the same like Lord's Manor because they're 2 young gentlemen. Before they go off and live their life, they need kind of this experience. Valentine is already there because his girlfriend lives there. His girlfriend is Sylvia, and she is the best out of all of the characters. And so Proteus is going to come. Proteus has a girlfriend. Her name is Julia. He is leaving her behind, and he gives her a ring. The second he gets to where he is going, he forgets about Julia. In a second, sees Sylvia, and I was like, I like that lady. And screws over his best friend, pushes him out, and pursues Sylvia. And Sylvia's like, why would I marry you? You're not even a good friend. Like, I love this man, and you screwed him over. So, not happening. And Valentine ends up going off and like almost like becoming like a pirate kind of situation, which is really weird. Sylvia then leaves to go find Valentine because that's her love. Julia has snuck and like disguised herself to follow Proteus, and he doesn't notice that it's her, and she's seeing all of this stuff happen. As they go chasing after Sylvia, who's chasing after Valentine. It's very much much ado, or not, Midsummer's Night Dream kind of stumble as they all come together and they decide. Proteus is like, oh, I do love Julia, and Sylvia's like, that's still my man. And so it's cleverly written. Again, Sylvia knows what she wants. Her dad's trying to get her to marry someone else, and she's like, not having it. So I love Sylvia as a character. The relationship between Valentine and Proteus was interesting. Proteus is an awful, awful person. Valentine just kind of stumbles around. So it's one of those like a little bit more clever of the Shakespearean plays. All right, final category is fiction, and there's a variety of things. I'm going to start with science fiction. I did finally finish Project Hail Mary, and I did do the audiobook version. I have read The Martian. I have not seen Project Hail Mary, the movie, yet, but the premise I thought was really interesting. You know, he's a middle school science teacher who kind of has to save the world. I don't know if it's necessary to listen to it on audiobook. Like, everyone says there are sound effects. You do get Rocky, who is the alien that he encounters, which I was like, why did they just use the audiobook guy in the movie? But I got kind of bored in between because you go back and forth where he kind of loses, as he's in space, and he loses his memory because of the way that they traveled, and so he's slowly kind of getting it back, and then you get pieces of what happened to get him there in the first place. And there were some instances where it was like ricochet back and forth, and you can tell, and he's said this before, that Andy Weir, that he writes for the screen, and you can tell that's kind of what he was doing. It was a little bit of whiplash for me, but I towards the middle I did get kind of bored. It is a good story, it is a good book, but I actually like The Martian better. On the same genre, I finished the 5th book in the Expanse series, and this is Nemesis Games, and this is James S.A. Corey. They're actually two guys that write under one name. I think the 5th season is the last season of the Expanse, and this 5th book only covers a portion of that series. So if you have seen the series, there is, I think, 8 books total, and this book is only a portion of that last season. And so this is where they kind of all separate. You have your core 4 people, they separate to kind of do their own things, and then at the end they do come together, and now they have their nemesis, which is Naomi's ex. So I love the Expanse series. If you are a sci-fi person, even if you haven't seen the series, or if you have seen the series, still read the books. They're fantastic. I did not like their other series, but the Expanse books, the way that they adapted it for TV and the way that it is written, they're excellent. I also read Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I've only read one. I read Babel. I'm going to call it Babel. I thought Babel was overhyped for what it is. The issue that I have with R.F. Kuang's books is that her characters don't fully develop. And so this book was difficult, but I think it was difficult on purpose. She is a great writer. I do have some issues with her characterizations. This book is uncomfortable the whole time because your protagonist sucks, the entire time. You're not supposed to like her. She does have a tiny bit of a backstory that kind of explains why she is doing what she's doing, but I felt like it got thrown in there later. And it is a book mainly like about the publishing industry, and if this is what the publishing industry is, like, sucks so hard. Like, who would want to be a writer? You see kind of the rise and fall and all of the things that you have to do as a writer. It is basically about two friends, one who is jealous of her friend's success. Her friend dies like in front of her tragically, and so she steals one of her work. Her friend is Asian, hence the yellow face, and she kind of puts that work off as her own, but then people find out about it. And she does it again, which is weird. Why you would do it again? It's just the insecurity. But yeah, it was just uncomfortable, like, to read the whole time. I did do it on audiobook. The audio narrator was great, but this book is just uncomfortable and not quite for me. So I don't know if I'll continue reading Kwong. She is a good writer, but so far between the two, she's not one of my favorites. Unlike Maggie Stiefvater, who I have read quite a few of her books. I love her. She's on my list of, you write a grocery list, I'll read it. I read Braverly, which is about Brave. It takes place, I think, about a year after the movie, and Merida has to make a deal with the gods in order to save her family and her home, because there is a god that basically sees when something is not progressing and is like falling apart, like her house is, because her family's busy, they're doing other things, there's like different priorities that they have, and so she has to change everyone. The deal that she makes is she has to change everyone in her family, including herself, and that will allow them to stay in their home. Otherwise, the home is going to crumble and fall apart. And she has to also go to 3 different kingdoms to kind of work with those kingdoms, because there's like a B plot as well as a C plot. But beautifully written. I like cried at the end of it. I'm excited to read more of these Disney books if this is what they are. Like I said, Maggie Stiefvater, I will read whatever she writes. So it was such a great book. It was so sad through. And the person who does the audiobook, I'm sorry I forgot your name, does great accents, and she's got the Scottish accent as well. So last year I had a banned category. I have 2 banned books that I've read, and I'm just including them within the fiction category now. And the first one is I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, and this is Erica Sanchez. It is a banned book. I could kind of tell why. It's still stupid that they're banning books. It does talk about suicide. It does talk about rape. It also, to me, was a little bit stereotypical, and so that was kind of one of the issues that I had with it. The other was what a wild ride. There's some of these books that just like throw the kitchen sink at you. Like, it starts in one direction and then everything happens to the end. So it starts off with our main character's sister got hit by a bus, and she's kind of dealing with that and the fact that her sister was the perfect Mexican daughter. She knew how to make tortillas, which is what her mom keeps saying to her. And then she's dealing with the identity of being someone whose sister died, and who she also didn't really know her sister, and so she's trying to find out who her sister was through all of this. And life happens, and she gets a boyfriend. She finds out information about her parents that she might not have wanted to know. She finds out information about her sister that she might not have wanted to know. And that ends up being a little bit too much for her, and yeah, she tries to end her life. So that, I think, is why it's banned, but who knows, really. The next banned book, which I actually really liked, was The Last Night at the Telegraph Club, and that is by Melinda Lowe. This is San Francisco in the 1950s. Our main character is Chinese American. She's first generation, so her parents came over, and her dad's a doctor. And there is stuff that's going on in the country of this time. Obviously, communism and Red Scare and stuff like that. So there is a governmental watch on her parents, and so there's that pressure there. And then our main character is also a lesbian, and she's a coming-of-age story of finding out who you are and who you want to be. She's also a woman in the 1950s, and she really wants to work with NASA, and she's really good at math, so just covering kind of like that part of life and wanting more than just to get married. And then the Telegraph Club was a lesbian club that has a male impersonator. We would call them drag kings now. And then she meets a woman that she really likes. I found the book to be really sweet. I loved it. It's probably banned because of the lesbian factor, which is stupid, but I think it was also a great snippet of history that San Francisco is known for, obviously, for gay culture and things like that, but the part of it with the clubs that are there, and the fact that for a while it was illegal for gays and lesbians to congregate together, which is also stupid, but luckily we have moved on from that in history. So those were my 2 banned books that I read. One I loved, the other one not so much. I have 2 more books to talk about. I'm going to save my favorite for last, but I read Moonbound, and this is by Robin Sloan. And the cool thing about this book is that it glows in the dark. I actually got this book as a blind date with a book on Etsy, and I finally got around to reading it. It is a little bit of a chonker. And it's really, the more I sit and think about this book, the harder it is for me to describe what happens. It was a struggle for me to figure out, are we in the past? Are we in the future? They even start, on the jacket, it's 11,000 years from now, and a lot has happened, and yet a lot is still familiar. There are a lot of pop culture references in here, but when you first start the book, it feels fantasy. This is a fantasy book, but it feels like ye olde times. There's this whole mythology of, the sword and the stone. Our main character, he is trying to find a sword for his brother. He ends up going into a crypt, and in that crypt he finds a sword. That sword talks and shoots weapons. So we get past and present, future, and it's all a jumble. It is very literature inspired because, again, you have the sword and the stone. There's a wizard in this town, and he is trying to get this kid to fulfill the Excalibur motif. Along with the sword is a fungus that is one of the main characters. I would say the kid is the main character, but really our narrator is this fungus that is the observer. And the observer has lived with, I think it's 4 or 5 people, because he has this mind palace thing that he goes to where those other people that he had observed their lives, he has reconstructed, and he has a little town and talks to them. And so the issue that I had with this book, it was a little weird. It's not a bad book, but it does have pop culture references of now. There was a thing about the White Stripes song. So sometimes it just pulled me out of it because I was like, what is happening? What is happening? It is a wild ride for sure. Last book is Piranesi, and that's Susanna Clark. This book has been everywhere. Everyone talks about it. I put it on my list, and I didn't really look into what it was about, and I went in totally blind. So you have the cover. It's a little fawn creature, and it's called Piranesi. And I think going into this book blind is the only way to read it, because your main character, who is Piranesi, is also having memory issues. He lives in this weird palace place that has multiple stories, and there's statues everywhere, but he doesn't remember who he is and how he got there. And so slowly he's discovering pieces of information that he has written before, things that he finds out from, he interacts with a couple other people in this place, and so you find the information as you read. So really, that's all I'm going to tell you, because go into this book blind. I really enjoyed it. It is hard if you're like, I need an established, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing, which usually is what I do, which is why I had an issue with Moonbound. But really, that discovery of like what is happening, you get a little bit by little bit, and you get the full story that way, I thought was cleverly written. And I greatly enjoyed it. So those are all my reads for the months of April, May, and June. It was a little bit shorter than what I normally do because I was on vacation for a couple weeks. I am finishing a couple of books right now, so there'll be hopefully a wide variety. But if there is a book that you have read that you really loved and you'd like to share, please put it below. I'm always looking for suggestions.